All right, Red Dot Fitness, Scott Howell, how's it going?
Good to see you, man. Thanks for coming.
I got to start this off. I mean, this gym is absolutely beautiful. You definitely have it set up. It's probably one of the most clean gyms I've ever been in.
Thanks. That's the goal.
That's the goal.
There's no excuse for having a dirty gym, man.
So you've been in the fitness industry now for over 2 decades. So can you talk a little bit about the roles you played over the 20 years and how you ended up at Red Dot now?
Sure. I started like I think a lot of coaches or trainers do. I had a little bit of an athletic background, and when that was over for me, when football was over, now what? I'm spending 3 hours in the gym still, but I don't have a purpose. And I was going to school at the time still, and the bodybuilding world was kind of the only thing. It was the only place to really that was I guess kind of the outlet. And I had hit a plateau. I wanted to change my body, sort of the way it looked, because I was training differently. And I had questions about nutrition. And man, I was voraciously trying to study everything I could. And there wasn't a lot of good information out there. It certainly wasn't as accessible as it is now. There was no Google, right?
Yeah.
So I went to the owner of the gym, who at the time was a IFBB pro bodybuilder. And she had a knack for nutrition. I had seen the transformation she'd made with some of the clients in the club, and I went to her and I said, "Hey, I need some help." And she said, "Well, that costs money." At the end of our conversation, and I said, "Well, I'm broke."
At the end of the conversation,
I'm a starving student. Tell me what to do. I'll do whatever I need to do. She said, "Well, I tell you what, you're going to meet me here every morning at 4:45 in the morning. You're going to be my training partner, and I'll help you." Because she had seen me train in the gym, and we had a bit of a relationship, and I had a little bit of a reputation. So that's exactly what I did. And it wasn't too long down the road where she's like, "You're pretty good at this. You should think about being a coach." It never dawned on me.
Really?
And that's where it started. Yeah, that's where it started. So I started as a coach. A few months later, I sort of managing the trainers that were there. I was dedicated, to being a good coach, but I really loved the business aspect of it. So that's kind of where it started. And then over the years, I'd ultimately left that space and went to another one. I'd spent a little time independently trying to kind of figure out myself, thinking that I could do it on my own and learning some hard lessons.
A lot harder than you thought it was.
Yeah. Some wake-up calls there, and then worked somewhere else. And then this was a time when the industry was really growing. So we're going back to like 1998. And at the time, personal training was like the fastest growing profession in the nation at the time.
Everybody was doing it.
And it was fairly easy to do. I mean, but education was starting to change. Alternate routes of education. You didn't just find the person that had gone to school and gotten their kinesiology degree or their exercise science degree doing it. You saw people that were passionate about it, that were smart, just period, and they were finding ways to gain this stuff. So I started to research a little bit more and kind of build my skills and my craft. Bally Total Fitness had been sort of the world leader at the time, the beast at the time. 24-hour was really coming along and fast. The guys there were killing it.
That was Mastrov?
That was Mastrov. So those are the Mastrov days. And Bally's, Mastrov was building new clubs. Bally's, approach at that point was, well, let's go up and buy what's out there because we have this buying power, and we'll acquire and grow that way. So at the time I was living on the Central Coast of California. I had applied to be a personal trainer over at I was moving at the time with a relationship that I was in. I applied to be a trainer in a market they had just acquisition, which was over in Fresno, California. They picked up 5 clubs there. I applied as a trainer. I got a call. Hey, you've got more experience and management experience than most of the employees we have. Yeah, because they'd acquired these other clubs. Would you be interested in, managing a club? I said, how much does that pay? And they told me, and I said, I'll take it.
Definitely.
So I went over, and it went pretty fast from there. I was pretty successful immediately with sort of the personal training program within the club that I was in. And so people started to take notice of that.
Okay.
Pretty soon I had 5 clubs. And I wanted more, but there wasn't really much more to offer out there on that island. So I had a really great sort of area manager there who created something for me. At the time, the company had what they called area trainers. And what an area trainer was the person that really did the sales training and Bally had a comprehensive 5-day, 8-hour-a-day course. And so I was fortunate. I was a young guy. I was in my early 20s.
Could travel everywhere you wanted.
Yeah, I got to travel. I got to meet with some really talented, really experienced people, some mentors. I was teaching, which, just sort of helps you improve everything. And there were accountability processes that I was involved in, and I really learned the sales aspect and also the management aspect. And then things grew. All of a sudden, one of the clubs that or one of the companies that Bally's had acquired was Crunch.
Crunch Fitness, yeah.
Crunch was killing the personal training game, and they were doing it in a different way.
And they're recently been blowing up again now.
Yep, they're starting to kind of pull it back together. Their original model was a little bit aggressive, but what I mean by that was they weren't hiring exercise science grads. They were hiring hustlers. They were hiring people that were passionate. They were fired up, and if you remember, they started on the East Coast in New York, where everybody works with a trainer.
Yeah,
and it was a bit of the wild west on the East Coast. Bally picked up Crunch, and they wanted to bring in that mentality. Yeah, that mentality and the success that they had into Bally. At the time, I'd kind of stepped back from personal training. I'd had my hand slapped a little bit about kind of the things that I was doing and the reasons I was doing them. So I was doing more of the sales training aspect. And this whole Crunch thing had happened, and I watched it happen, and I was invited to go to kind of this big regional event where they were going to roll out the new program with the guy at the time who was kind of handling personal training.
Okay.
And I just was like, these guys are my guys.
Yeah.
Like, I met them, and it was just that there was an immediate connection. Like, this is the reason I got kicked. I was getting my hand slapped. Like,
yeah.
If you're going to open the faucets or the floodgates here, let's do this.
You're in the right place for it.
Yeah, I was in the right place at the right time. So there's a little bit of that, I think, in life and in business. But it went very, very fast from there. So it was 5 clubs, and then I moved to Southern California, and there were 40 clubs down there. I was with a team of people, and there was some leadership change. And it was strictly personal training at that point, the business development and the education of the coaches. And then when I kind of run my time in Southern California, where there wasn't much room for me to go. Family happened. I was originally from Northern California, saw some opportunity here, asked for a transfer, came up, so then I had Northern California. I was here about a year, and then I got a call from corporate headquarters in Chicago. We're putting together a team. We need 4 national directors of personal training to kind of split the country up. We're 450 clubs, something like that at the time, and I
went out to Chicago?
I went out to Chicago. I still lived here, but then it was planes, trains, and automobiles for a couple of years. And
interesting.
Yeah. So there was anything in between, from the business development to the education to acquisition to shutting down clubs. Ultimately went through the last leadership change, which I just didn't have the energy for at this point. The company was going through a bankruptcy. I was essentially firing my friends as we were closing clubs down. It was a very negative time. It was very sad to watch the thing that we had built, sort of be shutting down. And then, and so that was kind of the corporate side of things. And then when I knew I didn't have it in me anymore, I knew ultimately for me, I wanted my own business. I think every trainer wants that. If you talk to any new trainers, like, my goal is to have my own gym.
And some of them are fearful of jumping in, or some of them just don't think they are that good at business that they can handle running their own facility or having their own personal training business. And
they're probably right in that, right?
It's a learning experience.
It's definitely, and it's sharp, and the learning curve is very sharp. So at the time, I had a pretty lucrative career. I was bringing home a pretty good paycheck, a lot of salary and big bonus potentials, and there were houses and cars and boats and things like that. And it was time to make some decisions. I had some liability there, but ultimately, with very little savings and very little kind of time to do it in, I had been planning for 2 years. My whole life, my whole career, I had been coming up with ideas. But my last 2 years, I really knew. And I've been journaling. I was journaling everything, and I just had everything was ready to go. The business plan was written, and I knew I needed to, for lack of a better term, I needed to put my proverbial balls on the table and go, hey, I need to get back on the floor. Can I do this? And I did that.
So the bankruptcy was kind of that aha moment that, hey, I have to get out of here. I'm hurting the people that I call my friends. The business is kind of winding down, so it might be time to. This is the sign.
Actually, well, I think from a financial perspective. I took a 30% haircut overnight. It was like, okay, well, you you can't keep doing this for too long. You have to start backing out. This isn't going to support where you want to go. And yes, that hurt and it was bad. I'm going to be honest, though. The people that had come in, the leadership, quote unquote, leadership team that had come in to do that, let's just say I was at odds. And I was probably the first guy to really speak up about that and how things were being handled. I was part of the growth of the whole thing over a long time. I thought it could have been handled differently. And I knew I wasn't in control anymore. All I wanted when I was working with Bally, which is what it provided for me, which is what I appreciated so much, is I needed two things. I needed the autonomy to do what I know I needed to do in order to help the company reach its goals and agendas, while helping me reach my own from a financial perspective and a professional perspective. And I just wanted to be compensated fairly for the work and the time and the efforts and the energy that I was putting into it. And I got that for a long time. And when that became totally inequitable, then it was that time. And then certainly having to go flying into a place like, I don't know, Atlanta, Georgia, landing, getting a phone call immediately after touching down, going, okay, so here's the plan. You're going to walk into Club X tomorrow and you're going to shut it down. You're going to fire these 15 employees.
Sounds like that movie with George Clooney where he's just going around hiring people at that point.
It was rough. But no, so that certainly drove that. I'll tell you what the aha moment was. The aha moment was actually coming back to my daughter's third grade back to school night or end of the year school night.
And at this point, you're still flying back between California and Chicago.
I was sort of in my final year. I'd come back and they come in. The kids got all their art projects up and all the things that they'd done throughout the year. And I looked around and I went, I missed a whole year of my kid's life.
Yeah.
It just flew by. And she was having challenges with it. I mean, this sounds ridiculous, but even in third grade, we'd gotten her a little cell phone so that she could call, and, call me whenever she wanted and things like that. And I was like, this can't continue.
Yeah, it's not sustainable.
This can't continue. I needed to be in a position where I could, be a dad and be at home and, be a human.
That's a big move to make, but also for the right reasons. I mean, I have a 3-year-old and I understand family first before everything.
One of those wake-up calls.
You might be making money, but it doesn't mean anything if you're not spending time with the people you love.
It's the quality of life, and it was really clear to me that it was not good, and it took that for me to kind of snap out of it and go, okay, it's got to change, and it needs to change now. And at that point, it was on. Like, I knew what I needed to do, and it happened pretty fast.
So you said you did have a business plan in place?
Yep.
Now, most people I talk to now, some of the big, in the fitness industry don't have business plans. It's kind of... I think having kind of a structure and a strategy on where you want to be is important, and coming from a finance background, business plans are pretty important. But there's a mentality that once you get punched in the mouth, everything changes and a business plan gets thrown out the door. But it's establishing some structure of what you want and how you're going to get there.
Yeah, I think you do a business plan for a lot of different reasons, but you want to keep that in mind when developing a plan. I think a lot of people think the business plan is really about, because I'm going to have to go present to potential investors or banks and get loans and things like that. And yes, for sure. And for anybody that has done that,
you need one.
You're going to have one, and man, you're going to need to know it inside and out. This is not a 3-page, outline.
So was this self-funded, Red Dot, or did you go through the bank? And
so everything, when we started, it was all bootstrapped. It was bootstrapped until 2017, which is when we expanded into this. So, and when I say we, it's important that I bring this up. So I had jumped back on the floor as a personal trainer. I'd literally started when I left Bally. I was there 1 week. 2 weeks later, I was renting space, right, as a coach with 0 clients from a previous fitness manager of mine that had worked for Bally and had rented a space here in town, and that's where I started. And inside that year, I met my business partner, Cece, and from there, we operated under the Red Dot label, but as 2 separate entities. We were still sole proprietors at this point. But we were sharing everything 50-50, and so it was all self-funded until it was time to expand. So it was this organic growth process that happened, and there was a lot that happened in about a 7-year period, and then we opened what we're sitting in today, and that was through an SBA process. Okay. So what we had sort of already built, and then the rest came from an SBA process, which was an experience in and of itself.
And you obviously had a partnership agreement in place, kind of just lay the ground.
We sole proprietors until late 2011, beginning of 2012, and we incorporated at that point.
Because there's a lot of trainers out there who will go off and leave kind of leave the business they're in now, whether it's a big box gym, with their friends and go start a business. And I'm opening this with my friend or, someone who I've met in the industry, and don't put in a partnership agreement because what could possibly go wrong?
Yeah, you learn a lot in that process, I think.
Eventually, you're not going to see eye to eye. It sounds great in theory, like, let's go do this, let's put a big business together, and what could go wrong?
Or the opposite, like you're a massive success, right? And then you have all these moving pieces and all these parts and all these things that in this operation that need to be managed. And somebody comes in and wants to buy you, or you want to bring on another partner to expand or whatever else. You want to be organized, to take advantage of that when that comes.
So how often do you revisit? I mean, your business plan obviously 10 years ago is completely different than what it is now. Yeah. So throughout the year, how often do you guys kind of revisit the strategy on where you see the vision of Red Dot going?
Well, yes, the framework, the long-term vision is really the same, and what you're seeing is the makings of that. It was a long process to get here. The revisiting certainly has happened several times in this last year. So when we opened this at the end of 2017, things that future business or gym owners need to familiarize themselves with is even the best laid plans are only that. That's all you got. You got to be ready to get hit in the side of the head or punched in the mouth, as the proverbial Mike Tyson quote goes. But the point of that is we got hit in the side of the head a few times with some things that we couldn't have prepared for, we couldn't have planned for, which forces you to re-examine, pivot, and then also clearly the market is changing constantly, and in those last couple of years, a ton. And so we revisit it quite frequently, about once a quarter. Okay. Are we on the right path right now? And we're just getting ready. We're sitting down right now thinking about 2020 and the things that we need to do, but that was we planned to be where we're at. We're not exactly where we want to be. I don't think you ever are.
Yeah. If you are, then you have a problem.
Yeah, exactly. So we're looking at 2020 right now, and we'll revisit it again at the end of the first quarter.
Next quarter.
Yeah.
So when you started, it was just you and CC. We're kind of the jacks of all trades doing everything.
That was it. We came from different backgrounds. I came from more of the commercial corporate fitness background.
Okay.
Cece came from the world of academia and athletic training. She had earned both her master's degree and then a PhD along the way, working at the University of Tennessee.
Okay.
And then ultimately was a professor here at San Jose State University for a short period of time before she left academia to get into the world of personal training for her own reasons. And when we crossed paths, it was kind of the moon, sun, and stars kind of all lined up. She was ready to make a change. I knew what I needed to do, and I knew ultimately it wasn't going to be just me, and I didn't want it to be about me.
Yeah.
So when we talk about the branding and what you're trying to do I think it's a big mistake that a lot of trainers make. You're making it all about you.
Or they want to just be the jack of all trades and do it all on their own.
Not a good plan. Not a good plan.
Because eventually it just takes up too much time where you could be focusing on doing things you love and why you did it. But if you're kind of handling everything on your own, you're not doing that anymore, and you just are dissatisfied with your decision.
Generally, it's because you're disillusioned to begin with. And I think what is important to note is you will be, and you have to be, the jack of all trades to start. You have to get involved in everything, but you have to learn really quickly what you need to outsource, what you need to not be in control of, what you're good at, what you're not good at, and remember what you're trying to do ultimately. And we had some very different and similar skills and strengths and weaknesses, and we played those together pretty well for long enough. But ultimately, you need to layer on. Yeah. You need to layer on the help. Yeah.
So it eventually gets to the point where you need to hire people.
Yeah.
And I think probably the most difficult thing is, since you both started this and you created the vision, you created Red Dot, bringing people on and kind of getting them on the same path to follow that vision can be very difficult because you're used to things being done a certain way, whether it's your bookkeeping, whether it's your social media or your marketing. And once you bring people on, I guess there's a big struggle there on how do I get this person on board with what my vision is and where we're going. So what struggles did you have hiring people?
Well, the first place we started in scaling was, okay, well, first off, we just need help paying some rent because our building grew. We expanded in our first space a couple of times. We're like, we got more space. The easiest thing to do right now is just to rent space, essentially, so you have independent contractors that are coming in. And we knew a few people at the time, and it wasn't like we were looking for 20 of them. We were looking for 2, 3, 4, 5 of them ultimately. But with that came what we wanted to expand was our group training program, because that's where the industry was going. It wasn't just one-on-one training or semi-private training. It was like, okay, well, put more people in the box, charge them a little less money, there's more volume. Like, the math works itself out. So we tried to do that with independent contractors, and the struggle was, first off, there's some legal stuff there, right, in terms of what you can dictate to an independent contractor, how the job gets done, when it gets done, what you utilize in order to get it done.
A lot of labor laws in place.
And I don't think a lot of people understand. And what I can tell you, and I know this, is there's a lot of people operating beyond the law as we speak.
Happening.
I mean, that's just, it is the way it is. Whether they know it, don't know it, or kind of know it and think they're doing okay. So we played that game for a while, and it just got to the point where the product wasn't being delivered the way we wanted it to be delivered. And so we knew we were going to need to make a change. And the fear really wasn't going to employees, is the cost. You know, what was the cost of having employees really going to be, and could we support that? But the challenges were getting people on the same page. They have to be interested in doing a good job. They have to be interested in actually doing the work, right? And they have to be interested in collectively, you know, providing something that's meaningful. Compensation and all that can easily be worked out. The paycheck's obviously an important thing, but we just needed people we wanted people that were passionate and ethical, you know, and you know, and some of those things, and they gotta want to grow. They had to want to grow. And that's where we actually ran into the biggest problems. Is, I'm good working. You know, I'm good with my 5 clients. You know, working, you know, 12 hours a week or whatever, and being a trainer. And my argument would be, you're not a trainer. You're a hobbyist. That's not a job.
You're not turning this into a true business.
You're paying rent and
you're getting by.
You're getting to the weekend. So yeah, exactly right.
Yes.
So that was tough. That was tough. We had to sort of refine our interview process, if you will, to vet people out. You never really know who that person is going to be till you're in bed with them.
Yeah,
you know?
exactly.
But at the same time, we started this process of, all right, well, we tried to recruit more than, you know, just put the ads out on the airwaves.
So you're just getting
you get every
coming.
Tom, Dick, and Harry out there, you know. And of course, everybody's an expert trainer. Yes, out there. So we tried to hire, you know, people, referrals that we knew, and we headhunted a little bit and kind of reached out, and again tried to vet through a process. And you know, part of it is you're going all in on somebody, but are they really going all in on you? And that's one of the next biggest struggles. Is we wanted to help develop and educate coaches who wanted or supposedly wanted to do that, but when they really find out how much work that is, and what that really takes to be successful, we get pushback, and you know, ultimately didn't work out.
Yeah. So we talked briefly before starting on how the structure is with your trainers. There's a lot of trains of thought there. Some just trade the ability to work out in the gym for free, just for hours of, depending on how many hours you train for. So at Red Dot, what is that structure set up like for your trainer?
So everybody's an employee. There's really sort of 2 different environments you're going to be working in as a coach here, or as a trainer. You're either going to be in the group environment, which has got a certain structure, or you're going to be in the personal training environment, which for us is either like one-on-one training or what we call semi-private training. So that's 2 to 3 clients in a session. Individual programming for each of those clients. The coach is managing that, so they're still very individualized and specific to those clients, but they're sharing their time. So there's a little bit of a cost break, and there's the camaraderie that happens. There's actually the most popular environment we have here.
Yeah.
So as a coach, I could be doing any of those things. You're paid sort of a base rate for your one-on-one training rate, and whatever that is for that trainer. And there's 3. We have some tiers, and the tiers are really based on, there's sort of an entry-level tier based on certification or education and how many years in the business. How many years of experience do you have?
And you're always pushing your trainers to continue their education, and
it's of primary importance. You have to. You have to. And so we do that internally, and we do by bringing people in. And some of the great people, you know, like one of the guys you brought along with you today, and
the expert Bulgarian bag.
Yeah, among other things. I don't know if this is an insult. But speaking of a jack of all trades, I mean, this guy can go deep on anything. But people like Mike, and you know, and then bring in our own experiences from a business development perspective or even a technical aspect here based on our knowledge and education here. So yes, always pushing that. But the first tier being, it's sort of your entry-level trainer. It's somebody that's less than 3 years in the business. That's still a baby in the business of personal training, has their personal training certification or 2 or 3. We really don't care. A degree.
Just have a good base.
Yeah, we just need a baseline, something to work with. And again, the next one would be somebody that's had 3 or more years. Generally has been through a place like we talked about, a Bally or a 24 or something like that. Maybe they got their start there. There's a little bit more education, a little bit more experience. And then the third tier is the person that's been with us for a certain period of time. And what have they contributed? What have they contributed to the business as well as to themselves along the way? So they have this base level, and then if they're training in the semi-private environment, they can make like up to 1.5 or 1 3/4 times that base rate for the thing that they're doing.
Yeah. So do you find it easier working with the entry-level trainers as you do with those who have over 3-4 years of experience, because you can kind of mold them into what you're looking as opposed to breaking old habits?
I think it's a mixed bag. I think the challenge with the new trainer who's really like the go-getter, who's really ready to
because they're probably the hungriest out of all of them.
Or they think they are, but they don't they don't realize how much energy the hunting takes and all the back end things to the business. We live in the Silicon Valley, right? And the Silicon Valley is a very, very expensive place to live. So a lot of those entry-level trainers are also still living at home. Right. Yeah. They have, they're going home to full refrigerators and, a roof over their head, and their liability.
Haven't hit the struggles
yet.
They
haven't had the struggles yet. And there's a lot of struggle in the personal training game. You're going to, there's a lot of opportunity for learning. And if you haven't had to do that yet and you don't know what that's like, that can be very, very challenging for a new trainer. On the flip side, with the experienced trainer, this is a person that maybe has gone through those struggles and does understand it, has a very, very specific view, philosophy, methodology, and how they train. I think those are the easier ones for us to work with because I think we can relate and connect with. I don't care really what your background is, as so long as you're not dogmatic about any one.
Open-minded.
Yeah, about one thing, we usually get on pretty well. Then it's a matter of, do they really want to make the commitment to one person? Because we don't honor moonlighting somewhere else. It just doesn't work unless you're committed. We're going to help you. We're going to go 100%, 110% all in on you. We expect the same in return. That can be a little bit of a tough thing because at this point they've learned how to be independent. And we want to give them that independence both financially and from a training perspective. We don't dictate what happens on the floor. But sometimes that can be a little bit of a challenge for the more experienced trainer. This feels a little risky. I'm actually going all in with somebody I've done this on my own. I know I can be successful. Are they really going to help me? And this is the businesses can be very cutthroat. It's very incestuous. We've all crossed paths at some point, and not all those experiences have been very positive for the more experienced trainers. So they've got to step back. But what I can tell you is when we created this whole model, and I've seen a million of them. I've seen it. You name it.
Sure, in the 10 years you've been here, there's been a lot of shops up and down pretty quickly.
I've seen it all, for the most part. So there's certain things that still shock me a little bit when I hear it, but from a model perspective, again, what we're trying to do is just give people the ability, the understand a place and the ability to really grow in whatever way they want to, with very limited expectation on how much you have to do. A full-time trainer, at any facility anymore is like 25 hours a week.
Yeah.
And you can make a good living doing that. But if that's your goal, right, you're probably not going to last very long.
No, you're not.
So you really have to be pushing it and willing to be here at 5 a.m. and be here at 8 to get things going. And those are the tough parts for people to get. I mean, when I first started, there was literally a cot in the back in the break room.
Just sleep.
Yeah. I mean, I was also working in a bar, right?
Oh,
so
yeah,
I was shutting down the bar at 2 a.m., right? And I was opening the gym at 4:30 in the morning and a zombie and trying to go to school, which wasn't a good combination. And that's what you do. You got to be there when the clients are there. You got to hustle. You just got to be ready to go. You got to take advantage of the opportunity when it's there and not say no.
So outside of coaches and trainers, what other areas have you outsourced, or do you continue to manage on your own, like social media and bookkeeping?
Oh man, so bookkeeping was probably one of the first things, and that's usually
it's probably the most intimidating out of all of them.
Well, depending on how complex your structure is, and how many clients you have, as soon as you start to scale and that volume starts to go up, things can get wildly out of control very fast. And you want to know, you need to know, and this is a very volatile business. So when it can be feast or famine. There's seasonality to it. There's market change. There's shift. There's things that happen, and you don't want to be spending 80% of your time managing the back end financial part. Most trainers are good at training. Most coaches.
And they got into it for that reason,
right? And that's where they want to be. They need to be on the floor making the impact where they need to be, where they should be making the impact. And so, like, outsourcing bookkeeping was one of the very first things we do. Accounting was actually first. We met our bookkeeper through our accountant. So things I don't want to have to worry about. I need to be concerned with them, and if I have a question or if I've got a concern, I have a solid resource. Best money you can spend, particularly in January every year when you're filing your business taxes, and
you got everything in line already.
That's right there. Yeah, it's right there. So outsource that. The other thing is having some type. I think what's important is having some type of an operating system. There's so many platforms out there now for you to manage your clients, manage their payments.
The CRM.
Yeah, all the CRM stuff. So that was one of the first things. Outside of coaches, and trying to scale that way. And then recently, man, I missed the social media game. So I'm almost 45 years old. I'd never been on Facebook until I left Bally, and I have a very, very keen business friend, TED Talk type of guy who's like, dude, you got to be on Facebook. I was like, why? He said, because
you're not going to make it.
For all the reasons why you should, and which I was like, okay, man. So at the time, you have to have like a personal account to have a business account. I think things have changed. The structure's changed a little bit. So I was like, okay. And I just fumbled and bumbled around Facebook for a while. Actually, my very first website I created on my own, because that's what you do, right? When you're bootstrapping everything together. And it was actually like a social platform. I'm just going head to head with Facebook. I don't know what the hell I was thinking. It failed miserably, but just one of many failures along the way. But so got on Facebook, and I never did much with it. Instagram came along, and I had a daughter. Basically introduced me to Instagram. Dad, how come you don't have an Instagram? I don't know. Should I?
Do you want to manage it?
Yeah. So the Instagram. So here's getting to the end. Up till 2017, up till we expanded into our current space, we really didn't have a social media presence at all. And so
you were just working based on word of mouth and
grassroots, man, old school. It was getting out in the community. It was building your network. It was focusing on what we still focus on, which is providing a remarkable product, right? And over delivering the value with every single experience, and that's how we built it.
Yeah.
And we didn't have to take money from anybody to do that, and I didn't have to do any advertising on social media to make that happen. So this is awesome, right? But when you triple in size and your goals triple and your financial agendas triple, it became very obvious to us very fast that the whole fitness industry and space is living on social media. We got to do a better job here. So we outsourced that for a little bit as a means to try to get in front.
And it must have been easy for you because it's something you didn't do. So it's not you don't have really expectations of what to expect.
Absolutely the opposite.
Really,
if I'm being honest, like I'm looking at this stuff online, and half the time I'm looking, this is garbage. Like, people are putting out garbage every day. We cannot be that kind of a company. That's not what we want to do. So first thing is overthinking it, right? Everything has to be perfect. There's got to be production value. There has to be super organized and pre-organized. Operator and a trainer,
professional videos.
Yeah, it all has to be scheduled and all this stuff. Versus just get on there and figure it out, and just kind of put some stuff out there. And the second part is what I found really, really, really intimidating was holding the phone out in front of your face and trying to do something. I still can't do
awkward.
it. I still can't do it. So, I really struggle with it. And it's interesting when I hear feedback when someone says, hey, I saw your video the other day, and then, which there's not many of. Hey, you seem really natural. I'm like, really? Because I feel like an asshole. Like, it's like, I feel like a total idiot
Like
here.
you're that guy.
Yeah. So there was an avoidance. There's a real avoidance to it. But then I figured out, okay, we really have to put some structure into this marketing thing. And so we started to do that. And we really did a good job sort of at the beginning of last year. I kind of figured out a lot of things. And now we do some outsources. All the ad placements that we do and whatnot, that's handled by a third party. Mm-hmm. Any of the stuff that you see sort of posted on our feed, whatnot, that's handled in-house. But if you're seeing any ads, I let the pros handle that, because that thing to me is very intimidating, and it changes so fast.
The algorithm's always changing.
Yeah, it changes so fast. I tried to handle it a little bit here in-house for a while, and then every time I'd log onto that platform, I'd just be like, look, this is different than 2 days ago. Like, what does this even mean? Yeah, there's so much going on there, and again, I'm not comfortable with it. What do people want? What do they want to see? How do you hit the people that you want to hit? So, yeah, we've got a third party handling.
Did you notice an immediate impact?
Immediately. And 50% of that impact was the decrease in stress I had in having to manage it or having to put stuff out and not knowing why things would work and why other things wouldn't work. Having some kind of a hypothesis, but not really knowing how to maximize any of that. And then immediately, it wasn't like the faucet or the floodgates opened up, but it was certainly like there was a steady increase of the leads that we wanted, coming in.
Right people.
The right kind of people, yeah. So the targeting on some of that stuff really started to happen, which then freed us up to do the things that support that. Maybe write some content, film some content, develop, things within the business on the back end. Email is a big deal for us. We do a lot of we try not to do too much, but we do. A lot of people said email marketing is dead. For the amount of time that we put into it, we're pretty efficient with it now. You should get a pretty good return on what we put out.
So you're able to see what your customer acquisition cost is now based upon how much you're spending.
Yeah, it's still a little tough at times because our business is a little complex, and there's different routes that people go through. Like, they bounce to different places, and I'm not so sophisticated as a company like Nike who knows, like, well, you clicked on this ad on Instagram, and then that same credit card number got traced back to you when you bought the shoes on Amazon. Mm-hmm. We're definitely not that sophisticated, but we can see, what is working, what isn't, and it puts us in a position to pivot or tweak and, change things up.
Do you ever find yourself, I know having a gym, the floodgates open of people that come, and especially when you first open a gym, most gym owners will accept anybody who comes through the door, outside of the target client they're looking for. Do you ever find yourself having to maybe get someone who comes to the door who's talking to you about their goals and kind of what they're looking for and push them into another direction, to another gym, so that way they don't break up kind of the community or what you set here at Red Dot?
Yes. And it doesn't happen very often, but it does happen. And fitness means different things to different people, and people still have very unrealistic expectations and goals, and we do a very thorough job in our onboarding process or clients or interview process of understanding what those are and where we can help them best. And there are times where you get the person that just has a very unrealistic goal or is trying to dictate the process, where you just know sort of immediately this is not a right fit for us.
Yeah.
We're going to try to provide the healthiest, most fun, effective, and efficient programming to get you where you told us you wanted to go based on our knowledge and our expertise. We'll refer out where we need to, but we can really handle just about anybody that walks through that door. So it's interesting. I guess the question you asked is, because they don't really fit into the structure or into the environment or the culture or the environment.
Kind of shift the culture a bit much, and your core members or who kind of set this culture and kind of believe in this culture might be like, well, why is he letting that person in the door?
Yeah, and I think so. Yes, and so the answer is yes. There are those times, but I don't discourage people from coming in and giving it a shot, and I'll tell them straight up, and our employees are not, hey, we know we're not the right fit for everybody, but you should come in and you should check it out.
Yeah, see if you're a fit.
And so there's no problem with that. Come in, and our clientele is very diverse. It's very, very different from a lot of places. Every place is different, and they'll tell you the same thing. But it is very diverse, but it does have a feel, and I think that's that's the makings of a great culture. Is like you know it when you get inside it. And they usually weed themselves out, I guess is what I'm saying.
Eventually.
Yeah, this isn't the right spot for me. Great. No problem. Thanks for allowing us to have that experience with you. We're here if you have questions, or we're here for you in the future if things change, or if you think you want to give us another shot.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So taking a step back, we talked about bookkeeping a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So by what metric do you really measure the success of your business? I mean, are you looking at bottom line? Are you looking at how many members you have? What key metrics do you look at to kind of get your pulse of how the business is doing?
Yeah. So I think that, you asked about the shifts, how often do you kind of reevaluate your plan and where you're at? That shifted, along the way. I think when you start a new business, what you're looking at is client acquisition, constant client acquisition. Mm-hmm. We just need bodies, right? We need that volume coming through the door. That's probably one of it's always going to be a key in the fitness business because there is attrition. So certainly new client volume, we have a lot of room for growth. So that's a big one. How many new clients are we bringing to the table? What are we building for the future? The second thing is we run sort of a dual model, and so there's an EFT model, right, and then there's a pay-as-you-go model, mm-hmm. and how you decide what model you're going to use is up to you as a business owner. But we actually run kind of a side-by-side model.
Okay.
And for a long time, it was mostly pay-as-you-go, and then we shifted over into more of the EFT model and building for the future. And so for right now, we're really looking at, hey, how many people we put on a little bit longer term agreement for EFTs?
It really helps you understand your cash flow.
Right, and that's the biggest reason why. Obviously, again, volatility in the market is going to happen constantly, but and in the gym particularly, but in a gym business particularly. But yeah, where am I going to be in 2 months? Right, 3 months, 4 months, 6 months, in a year. So that one's a big one for us now. So what does our EFT look like versus our pay-as-you-go?
And you're trying to incentivize people to go as a pay-as-you-go into the EFT model?
Yep. So we've done, we've made several changes, and we've clients we've had for 10 years. Cece brought clients over, from the previous place that she was at. She's had them for almost 15 years now, so 13, 14 years now. So they've seen that change, but we've encouraged them to move over, and we've given them incentives for doing that. And at the same time, again, I'll go back. I think we've been pretty successful with the changeover because what I like to think is we over-deliver the value end of it. Mm-hmm. So when I'm giving you a really good price point, and we're under market for what we provide here. For a long time we weren't, and I think that's part of why the shift is working so well. People used to walk in on the pay-as-you-go model. When you're the most expensive game in town, people are like, whoa, you want me to commit for 6 months, a year? Man, you guys are really expensive. So okay, well, let's just get you in here for a month, and get in for a month, and the second month happens, the third month happens, and we'd have some things along the way to maybe commit for a little longer periods of time. But we earned the commitments over time. Well, now the rest of the market is sort of caught up. Now we're average, in a lot of ways, and under market in other ways, but still delivering a very high level of service. Again, pat ourselves on the back for what we think we provide here. But at the same time, our members are telling us that we're doing a good job by staying on board. So again, the next thing would be your attrition rate. How many clients are staying and paying, not.
And you're constantly looking for feedback from your clients all
the time. And the best place to do that is to ask them, right? And not through.
Because a lot of them will just kind of hold off from telling you, so it's better to just put it out there and ask them and get their feedback.
Yeah, and this is where things are very different now in the industry, and I think we're old school in this sense is I'm not sending you surveys in the mail. I don't have apps that are going to ask you a series of questions that are going to dictate or help me decide what are the changes or shifts we're going to make in the business. I'm going to straight up ask you on the floor. Why? Because I'm on the floor.
Yeah.
Right. And I know I'm not there all the time, but my coaches are. So I ask them, how can we be better? CC, we're constantly doing business meetings once a month. We have business meetings both as a group and with our coaches, getting their feedback. Where are they needing help? And then with our clients, it's really just it's engaging them. That it's true engagement, not a survey that you're getting hit on a text.
It's really personalized.
Yeah, and that's what we do. Yeah. So
now, are your trainers incentivized also bringing in new members?
So we're going to incentivize them on the upfront sale, and then we feel like we're very competitive on the compensation end of things. So the incentive is in terms of bringing new members in is you're going to get compensated pretty well up front. Of course, that flows with the model that we're trying to increase here with the EFT. it's pretty good. I think it's better than most places. And so I might want to come back to this question on, trainer marketing and, the employee versus the independent and how that all works. But the incentive is you're going to get paid well for actually servicing this client. So when you bring that person in, you're going to commission for that upfront sale, and we're going to pay you pretty well for taking care of them. And we're going to continue to feed you while you're here.
Yeah.
So
and having that really, going back to EFTs, really allows you to see kind of the long-term value of having these clients. And when you're in these quarterly sessions and trying to strategize, you have a clear outlook on, hey, we're going to have this much money based upon our EFTs. We can really put these things into place to get to the next step.
Right. And or what not to do, at the same time. So
the funds might not be there, so we might want to hold off for another quarter.
Right.
Nice. Yeah. So how do you see, you've been at the game on your own for 10 years. Years before that in the corporate fitness environment, how do you see the fitness industry changing in the near future? I mean, obviously everything's going boutique now. Everything's getting smaller. It's getting outside of the large group fitness training that CrossFit started. And there's more of these boutique Orange Theories, and now it's F45, creating this club atmosphere. How do you see the industry transforming?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing, obviously, is what you just said, and kind of the studio model or boutique model, where people are delivering a very, very specific type of product, and they're attacking a very, very specific type of customer. So whether that's a cycle studio or a rowing studio or a Pilates studio or whatever else, they're doing one thing and they're trying to do it really, really well. Mm-hmm. And the well is really in the party, right? In the get together, in the lights, the sound. I'm a little baffled by, that fitness is now about being in a nightclub, because nightclubs are gone.
That's F45, which is blowing up right now.
Well, yeah, I'm not going to drop any names, but you're packing 50 people into a room, and you've got, for lack of a better term, you got disco lights.
There's a DJ.
There's a DJ in the corner. I just heard there's a company in in London, England area. I don't know if it's specifically London. It's in Britain there, and they're going and buying old nightclubs, so that they can they can turn them into gyms, because the sound systems exist. That it feels like a nightclub, and that's what they're turning it into. Now, look, if that's what people want to do in order to burn calories and whatnot, that's fine. But it's short-lived. And so the other thing about how have I seen it change is it doesn't change. And that's why we're doing what we're doing, is in the end, it all comes full circle. Mm-hmm. I mean, so when I started in the business, group cycling was the thing to do. Like, that's what people did.
And then it went away.
And then it went away.
And then it came back.
And now it came back. And then it came back.
So
then it went away again, and it came back again. And so now you got Peloton. It's like, well, we're going to put them in their homes, and we're going to give them all this free programming, because that's the thing. So that's another thing that shifted, is people are really trying to do this on their own. Mm-hmm. They want to educate themselves. They want to be empowered to do it on their own. So that's much different than it used to be, where you walked into a gym and what you bought was, you're basically leasing the equipment, or you were renting the equipment. You came in, you had access to all the equipment on the floor, and then X amount of classes per week. And if I wanted that special cycling class, I'd pay a couple extra bucks and I get in there. So what ended up happening there is the ones that got really good, and the cycling studio is like, well, I should just leave here as an instructor and open my own cycling studio, and then I don't have the middleman, sort of like personal training. So that never changes, but that is what's happening, and it's a different mentality in terms of how to approach fitness. I go to this nightclub of sorts, and I go through this workout, and it's a one size fits all. And that's not any different than it was 20 years ago when you walked in the group exercise room and there were 50 people on steps, doing the same movements they'd been doing, for the 10 years before that. But there's something about the we don't ever move anymore. So when I go to this place and it is high energy, this just makes sense for me. The endorphins get going. There's a hormonal response there. I get all this stuff, and then I walk out of there, I'm hot and sweaty. Boom. I'm validated.
Yeah.
Emotionally and physically, I'm hot and sweaty. It's short-lived. And I think it's going to all come full circle again, and we get a lot of overflow from that here, because people have been doing...
They go, and then they'll come right back.
Well, they come right back, but they also come back, they're injured, right? Or they've got, let's just say they've got nagging things that may not be injured, but they're hurting. They're not feeling great. but it's the basic stuff too. It's like, well, look at, I joined, and for the first 2 months, it was awesome. I lost a bunch of weight, right? And I got stronger, and then it started to kind of slow down a little bit. So I started to go more often, and then I got a little bit more ahead on my fitness goal, and then that stopped. And so what I did was I went an extra time, and I started eating less, right? Because that just makes sense, right? Eat less, exercise more, lose more weight, and that's a very basic formula. But in conceptually, but in the end, what they're doing along the way is they're wrecking themselves. They're neurologically adapted, they've metabolically adapted, and now they're at a point where their bodies are not
there
going.
Comes injuries,
and they're hurting. They're not sleeping well. They're overstressed. They don't like the way things are going for them. And so that's who we get. We get a lot of not broken people. I don't want to put it that way, but we get I've tried all this other stuff, and I know there's a formula for me, and I just don't know what it is yet. The sales cycle is a lot longer than it used to be. That's one of the things that's changed in the industry. You have to be okay as a studio owner, having somebody say, you know what, I'm going to go try the other spot down the street.
Good, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. You just hope as a business owner that you serviced the hell out of them while they were in there, so that when they wake up one day and they go, you know what, this isn't working for me. They remember you,
I'm
and
not getting what I
they
used
come
to
back.
get.
And that was a huge wake up call when we moved into this location, because you just mentioned them: the Orange Theories, the F45s, the Pilates studios, the Cycle studios, that were charging more, than we were charging. But they were getting these great deals. You can get unlimited this for $50. I'm going to go take that deal down the street. I'm going to see how that works. So people come back. So there's been a shift in the obviously and it's gotten smaller. You're trying to squeeze as much out of the square footage that you have as a studio. So what are you doing? And it generally tends to be like, we're going to do this one thing really well. So it's this workout is what we do. We do it all day long, 8, 9, 10 times. And we're going to go all in on that. Yeah. And there's something to be said for that, because that model is very easy to control. I know I have this much space, so my footprint is this. So if I put X amount of treadmills on the floor, and that costs this much money, and I put this many rowers on the floor, this many bikes on the floor, and I have this much space over here, I can reasonably get this many people in. So it's very, very clear, right, I need to sell this many memberships I can have, and my overhead's going to look like this because I'm coaching that. That's an attractive model for the next huge shift, which is the franchise model.
Yeah.
Massive shift there. And I have, in being in the business as long as I have, a lot of my friends, my older friends, and when I say older, again, people that I worked with 15 years ago, are really making out on these deals right now, because these very wealthy people are getting roped in basically like a timeshare.
Yeah. They just got to get out at the right time when it starts collapsing.
Well, that's it. And that's what these guys are doing. They're going in and trying to rescue these guys that have zero clue about the fitness business, zero clue about any of the things we've talked about as it relates to the fitness business. And they're trying to figure it out. And they've financially, they've gone deep, and now they don't know what to do. And that's good for us.
Yeah. So you've kind of just established a base here, and as all these trends come and go and these fads in a way, you're still here, and it comes full circle.
Yeah, I'm not trying to pump 500 new members in 1 month. It's an organic, it's a slow but steady growth process, managing what's falling out the bottom and the reason why they are falling out the bottom, and trying to be better so we get less of that and build for the future, and not get over anxious and be really patient with the process.
Nice. So kind of just to close this up, I have a few questions. Being in this game for so long and having possibly mentors along the way, if you did run into kind of a crunch in terms of your business, strategically, financially, and you could reach out to one person for advice, anybody, not even a friend, just anybody that you've come across and used as a mentor personally, or just through books or through resources, who would you pick?
Wow. Man, that's a great question. And there are so many. I've been so fortunate along the way to have so many resources that I can reach out to at so many different levels. Man, I wish you'd been more specific about that. Like, it was this thing, and I know exactly who I go to.
I mean, we could keep it as fitness, if strategically on maybe a new program you want to implement, and you're kind of Is it the right thing to do?
Yeah.
I mean, you have the experience. You probably can handle that on your own. But if you were to reach out to somebody externally, who would you to get a pulse on if you think it would work?
I think that's fair. Actually, okay. So in trying to answer the first question exactly the way you asked it. So I had, and I certainly wouldn't be here without this guy, and I haven't talked to him in several years now, but he was really a pioneer in the industry, and he's still actively involved. His name's Sonny Reeser.
Okay.
And he was part of sort of the building of Bally's going back to the 60s. And anyway, ex-Vietnam vet, Marine. He was the Western Regional Vice President of Bally at the time when I worked with him. He really looked out for me, I think. At least that's the way I felt about it. He's a fitness guy, which is very different than a lot of, the corporate leaders of the time. And the guy had this knack for putting people in all the right people in the room. It wasn't necessarily because he had the idea of this is what we're going to change and this is how we're going to do it. He just had this innate ability in finding the people that were going to make it happen for him.
Surrounding himself with the people that will make it happen.
And let them kind of work it out. And I feel like he could direct me, He'd give me some example. He'd tell me a story. It's great with those.
I'm
right?
sure.
So many
Vietnam
examples.
vets usually have great stories.
Yeah, tons of that. And he would tell me a story, and he would be able to kind of get me to probably find the answer within myself rather than even having to reach out to somebody else because I always admired him for doing that. So, yeah. Sonny, if you're out there, thanks a lot, man.
Yeah. So let's say there's Fred out in Minnesota who works at LA Fitness, and wants to start his own gym, wants to get out and kind of do the things that you did. He gets asked the same question. He's like, I'm calling Scott. What type of advice would you give him as he makes that transition or to help kick his ass to get out of the gym and to create the business of his own?
Well, I think the first thing is as passionate, people that always want to be leaders, and we're trainers by nature are a bit maverick and they want to do their own thing. The first thing I would tell the person is, hey, you need to appreciate the situation you're in right now. Right? You've got an opportunity here. Great if you want to go out and do something. You need to learn and make sure you've learned as much as you possibly can. And I would probably run down, a short list of questions. But questions that probably haven't crossed their mind yet, about hey, what's your understanding of this aspect of the business? How are you going to do this? How are you going to do that? And try to help them get a pulse. This actually happens pretty frequently. I get a lot of calls on this. And then the next thing is
you give them a reality check.
That's really what it is.
Yeah.
And that's probably what Sonny would do for me, quite frankly. Probably tell me to, pull my head on my ass and get it done. But yeah, I think it would be appreciate the situation that you have and look to where you can find more opportunity in the current opportunity that you have while planning and putting that plan together with these things in mind. Don't go falling in love with the space. I know there's a great space that's probably opened up across.
The perfect space.
It's absolutely the perfect space. If you build it, they will come doesn't work.
But if you got a good product that offers great value, people are coming, they'll drive, they'll come.
Develop your product. Understand that all the people that are telling you they're going to come with you when you leave, or all the people you think they're. So cut that number in half by 50%, or cut it in half, and then cut it in half again if you're lucky. Because even that 5 extra minutes that they would need to drive is going to mean the difference between them coming or not coming. And it all sounds great, but people come for convenience first, right? And then the product, right? And then what it is that you're providing in terms of that special something, that X factor, and price is, a big part of that. So, be realistic in your plan and with your expectations. And then, when you're ready, rip the Band-Aid off, and it's all going.
Get ready to go.
And don't plan on sleeping, right? Don't plan on training for 3 hours a day. Working out. Yeah, you're going to have. Your life's going to change. The second your name goes on a building, you're not Trainer Joe anymore at LA Fitness in Minnesota, or Fred, whatever we said his name was. You are now officially an entrepreneur and a business owner, and there's a lot more than just showing up every day to the LA Fitness with the polo shirt on and a name tag.
Because that name brings in people.
Yep.
Now you're on your own.
Yep.
All right. Well, Scott, thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
If people want to find you on social media,
sure.
which We talked about where's a good place for them to find you.
Yeah, so you can find us on Instagram at red_dot_fitness. And it's red.fitness on Facebook. It's a good place to find us.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Take
Appreciate
care.
it.